Hello, this is The Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective of the world around me. Feedback is immensely important. Feel free to reach out. Best way to do that is through email and through YouTube. Alright, I am running an advertisement. It's on Paramount Plus app and the affiliated sources with that. So you hear a ad about The Harboring Light. That's me. Alright, so I'm pretty much on a lot of different audio platforms, so it won't be too hard to find me. So the topic of choice, I'm going to talk about the aspects of Greek mythology and what it has to do with the aspects of spring. So this time, I think you're in for a treat here. I'm going to dive into Persephone. Here we go. Alright, so me, Persephone, I found out about that a lot of different ways. Through mainstream cartoons. And there was one particular cartoonist that reinforced the aspects about this. So back in the day, when they were bridging the gap, when they figured out that cartoons were the niche for children, more suitable for children, that I remember when Disney Plus, I don't know if it's still on there. So when they were first implementing different stuff, that content that was on the Disney app, I'm not a fan of Disney, but the stuff that you can't discredit or take away the impact that Disney has had and the good things that they have contributed to society. So there was one particular short anime, that had to do with talking about the story of Persephone. And then, the story of Persephone, pretty much the story, Greek mythology is very, graphic in detail. It's one of those slippery slopes of, there's a lot you have to omit in order to deliver this to a general audience. And so the way that, I don't know, it's something about animation at that time. You get into the 30s, the 20s, the 10s, and so around that era. I don't know about the 10s. I had to resurface that because that's what I need to dive into more specifically for another episode here. But anyhow, the sort of art format that was created out of that time, it really heightened the ideas without, going into just explaining so many details about setting up the story and so forth. Pretty much force feeding people into understanding the story plot. They give the audience the opportunity to think for themselves, and you draw the conclusion where that can be for the adult and the child. Leave things up to your imagination. And so the way the character art and the character style was in these shorts, that this particular short that was centered around Persephone is quite interesting because it ties into the ghoulish matter that it has to do with the whole story. And so the aspects of this is also interesting, because we're getting into this source of material of where things are separated when we come to religion, in this case when we come to Christianity. So the devil and the aspects of Hades, Satan, and so forth, the Lord of the underworld, whatever these different connotations that have to do with the devil, they're quite distinct in the way that they are. The adjectives are the noun used to talk about this subject matter. So when you say Hades, typically that has to do with something that's not of a religious aspect of talking about Satan or the devil. But when you say Satan, the devil, that has to do with the aspects of religion for the most part, and that's a whole nother other element that to add into when we think about the story and all of these aspects and the religious references that can be connotated when we think about the story of Persephone. So, with this said, I'm going to get right into facts about the aspects of Persephone here. All right, so let me see. Let me go. All right, so let me go. All right, so, and this is from Greek Mythology, Theo Project, and this is theo.com. So, it says Persephone was the goddess and queen of the underworld, wife of god Hades. And then also, when I say about the aspects, so, with seasons and the connotation of this. So, it's quite interesting too, when you relate yourself and you think about the Bible, right? There's a lot of aspects that has to do with the way, the undertones in there with mythology here, Greek mythology. Because the audience at the time in which we're talking about, with the Roman Greek times, they were of that background. And to bridge the gap, so to speak, there's a lot of undertones that relate to the audience. But, we're talking about a religious sect that is Christianity. And so it's very interesting to me when you talk about seasons, because, in the Old Testament versus the New Testaments, there is a pattern that is very pronounced in the Bible about the importance of understanding seasons, right? And then how to relate yourself and how to conduct yourself according to each season, and all the stories that unfold according to the seasons in time, metaphorically or literally seasons. So in this case, translate this into the aspects of this story with Persephone and her contributions with the aspects of seasons in itself too. All right, so she was also the goddess of spring and growth, who was worshipped alongside her mother Demeter, and in the Eleusinian mysteries. So the agricultural-based cult promised its annuities passed to the blessed afterlife. So Persephone was titled Kore or Core of the maiden. So Core, quite interesting with itself. So I have to, if I'm not mistaken, that has to do, that's like a connotation with. Let me look that up right quick to just double check myself. Okay, bear with me, y'all. I'll just double check myself to make sure. Say Kore. Alright, see, just to put a little extra touch on here. Alright. So, hold on just a minute. I'll be right back. That's alright. I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that. Well, you know, things around the house. Something fell over. So it's okay. All right. So Corey. So I remember hearing about the Corey in the aspects of when it comes to depicting sculptures, Greek sculptures, sculptings. Let me say that again, sculptings, right? And so also to add on to that, there was a particular Greek style, or the core or Corey style, or you associate that with the particular sculptures, and they have this very still sort of non-detailed, and the emotion is very idealized in the way that is hold on, sweetie, in the way that don't worry about it, I'll take care of the rest.
I want to put this
okay all right
pieces puzzles are too hard.
Okay, just get what you can. Okay. And so, you know, it wasn't very in the realms of reality in way that the sculptures are depicted. But it's quite interesting, you know, finding out some more information about this. They say that Kor was also the original name of Persephone. So that's interesting too. So let's get back to the aspects of this. So it says, as the goddess of spring bounty, once upon a time when she was playing in a flowery meadow with her nymph companions, Kor was seized by Hades and carried off to the underworld as his bride. Her mother, Demeter, depressed at her disappearance, and searched for her throughout the whole world, which was accompanied by the goddess Hetek, bearing torches. So when she learned that Zeus had conspired her daughter's abduction, she was furious and refused to let the earth fruit go about until Persephone was returned. So, you know, you get in the aspects of winter, you know, barren, fruitless season. And see, there's a lot of can be a lot of religious, translate this to religious connotations in that as well, of how things are presented. You know, when we talk about, you know, the subject matter of Christ and the Greek undertones that are translated or presented in the Christian book. Hold on, Katie. Let me finish what I'm doing, okay? I told you stop. Okay, hold on. Okay. Hush. Thank you. All right, so let me finish this up. It says her mother, Demeter. Oh, I said that already. So Zeus had, shh. Zeus had conspired in her daughter's abduction. And she was furious and refused to let the earth fruit or be fruitful until Persephone was returned. Zeus consented, but because the girl had tasted of the food of Hades, a handful of pomegranate. Katie, I told you stop. Be quiet, okay? Let me finish. Okay, so let me get back. I had conspired her daughter's abduction. She was furious, and Zeus contented with this. Katie, I'm not telling you again. Stop. Leave it alone. Wait until I'm finished. Sorry about that. Zeus, and because the girl had tasted the food of Hades, which was a pomegranate seed, she was formed to forever spend a part of the year with her husband in the underworld. So her annual return to the earth in spring was marked by the flowering of the meadows and the sudden growth of the new grain. Katie, what I tell you about not listening to me? Shh. Okay, go play. No, just try to be quiet with that, okay? Listen, excuse my daughter. She's in the background playing. Look, I'll be right. Hold on just a minute. You don't need to play with this right now. Leave it alone, okay? Just play with this. Look, Look, here. Just play with this. Just play with this. Okay? Alright. Excuse me about that, everybody. Alright, so, as I was saying, she was forced to stay in the underworld with him because she ate that pomegranate seed. So her annual return to the earth in spring was marked by the flowering of the meadows and the sudden growth of the new grain. Her return to the underworld in winter. Her return to the underworld in winter, conversely, saw the dying down of plants and the halting of growth. In other myths, Persephone appears exclusively as the queen of the underworld, receiving the likes of, forgive me for pronunciation of this, Hercules and Orpheus at her court. So Persephone was usually depicted as a young goddess holding sheaves of grain and a flaming torch. Sometimes she was shown in the company of her mother Demeter and the hero Tripomalus, so the teacher of agriculture. At other times she appears enthroned beside Hades. Alright, so let me go into more depths about this. Alright, so it says Persephone and the creation of mankind. So in one obscure myth, Persephone was accredited with the creation of mankind from clay in place of the usual Prometheus. So a divine dispute ensued over which god should possess him, with the result that he was awarded to Zeus and Gala in life and to Persephone in death. So when Persephone was crossing a certain river, she saw some clay mud. She took it up thoughtfully and began to fashion a man while she was pondering on what she had done. Zeus came up. Kira asked him to give the image of life, and Jove readily granted this. So when Kira wanted to give her name, Jove forbade it and said that that his name should be given. But while they were disputing about the name, Tilius Gali, or Earth, arose and said that it should have her name, since she had given her own body. They took Saturnisus and Chronosis for judgment. So he seemed to have decided for them. Jove, since you gave him life, presumably he was given control of the fate of the man, and let her, Persephone, receive his body after death. So since Kira fashioned him, let her, Gali, possess him as long as he lives. But since there is controversy about this name, let him be called Homo, since he seems to be made of humus. See, Homo erectus, human, see, all of that. So, the seduction of Persephone by Zeus. So I'm going to get into a little bit of this. It says, because Zeus, the reason why I'm going to talk briefly about this and then wrap it up, because Zeus is a very big player when it comes to the aspects of Greek mythology and the ways in which all these gods and goddesses conduct themselves. So let's hear what is going on with this. So in the Orphic myths, the maiden goddess Persephone was seduced by Zeus in the disguise of a serpent, and she bore him a son. So the godly Gereus, who was when Zeus placed him upon the throne of heaven, was attacked and dismembered by the Titans. His heart was recovered, and he was reborn through Semele as the god Dionysus, and an informal goddess named Melinon, probably Hetek. It was also known to have been born from the union. All right, so sometimes writers of myth, however, relate that there was a second Dionysus, who was much earlier in time than the one we have just mentioned, or they have just mentioned, according to them. So, according to them, let me say that again. According to them, there was born of Zeus and Persephone a Dionysus who was called by the name of Sabaeis, Sebzeus, and whose birth and sacrifice and honors are celebrated by night and in secret because of disgraceful conduct in which the consequences of the gathering came about. All right, so I would like to know what you all think about this story. So I'm going to wrap up and give you some of my thoughts here. So, again, here. There's a very spirituality and there's a very moral lesson that can be thought about when it comes to Greek mythology. Now, Greek mythology, they can mean a whole bunch of different things depending on certain company. Some say, they all view it from a contemporary lens or whatever you want to say, which is sure, of course, because that's what you should do, because that's why it's so relatable, because it is very modern when you think about the situations in which is conducted with Greek mythology. Sex and violence and rock and roll and so forth, right? Others have other points of views. They see it as a cultural roadmap to the way people thought at that time. Other people see it as it's a historical landmark to, give a reflection of how people lived at the time. To me, I think it's just a mixture of both. And I think it's very rapport and relevant. And it's also a warning tale and so forth about, a more a hot and spicy warning tale, so to speak, about depending on the different levels of gods and goddesses that your temptation or so forth or what have you, or your conduct and your order dispels a lot about the events that can be foretold or happen. So in this case, when it comes to Persephone, the aspects of how we thrive in our natural world, literally with that, how we if we are, blessed, I would say, with the aspects of a season of spring versus a season of summer where there's no sort of harvest or new growth, and that is the aftermath of her going down to the underworld with being with Hades. That speaks volumes about the lessons and the undertones about the aspects of how do our repercussions affect our natural world. How do our actions affect our natural world? All right, so this reaches the end of the Harmony Light. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.